Go to taxact.com.
As the country struggles with pressing budget problems, Congress is bitterly divided along party lines. But could there be a freshman fix in the works? Some new members say they're committed to, quote, a new era in Congress. And joining us now are two members of this bipartisan gang of 32 Republican congressmen from North Carolina, Rob Pittenger, and Democratic Congresswoman from Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema. Welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
You say that you're committed to a new era of Congress, but I have to ask you, it sounds a little bit like an insurgency and perhaps a little bit offensive to the leadership that's in place there. Your reaction, Kyrsten?
Well, you know, on the Democratic side, the freshmen came together with folks like Bob and others on the Republican side. We've been working on this issue for about 5 weeks now. In fact, the conversation started before we even took office. And on the Democratic side, we reached out to leadership ahead of time and said, hey, we're working on this project. It's important to us. It's important to our constituents. And we hear daily from our communities that they want a bipartisan solution and an end to the bickering. We got no pushback at all from our leadership. In fact, many of them said, good, go forward, and we need some change in Washington.
And Congressman Pittenger, your reaction to that, do you see this, or could it be perceived of as a potential threat to the established order?
No, sir. We got tremendous support from our leadership. We all recognize that the national debt is the biggest crisis that we face, and that has to be front and center. And frankly, at all the briefings that we attended together as a freshman class, over and over, we kept hearing that concern. And today, that concern is not really front and center as it needs to be. So really, that's what drew us together. That's why we wrote the letter to the president. That's why we wrote the leadership, try to make sure that we did whatever we have to do to address this national debt.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's take a look at some of your proposals here. We have to strengthen and preserve Medicare, and Social Security is one of them. Another one is to promote economic growth to generate revenue. Third, to cut spending. And fourth, to cut down or to cut back on Medicaid fraud. These are always noble endeavors, but as is so often the case in Congress, the devil is in the details, and the different parties seem to have different approaches, different means to the same ends. So how do you broach those two divides? That divide, I should say.
Well, I think clearly.
Can say that. Go ahead,
Bob.
Go ahead, Bob.
Well, I think clearly it has to be front and center. We're really right now we're straightening pictures while the house is burning down. If you're an alcoholic, you need to first admit that you have a disease. And we haven't been hearing the message. We haven't been hearing the concern. The president in his inauguration and his State of the Union never mentioned the debt. The debt has to be first and foremost. It's going to imperil the future economic condition of our country. We're going to end up in a financial collapse like Greece. And so we have outlined some provisions, some means by which we can get there. And this framework, we believe, is doable and achievable.
Congressman Sinema, you, as you said, wrote a letter to the White House. What has been the response from the White House?
You know, we just submitted all of our materials actually yesterday, so, and I think on Thursday, and so we haven't heard back from the White House, but we did hear from our leadership on the Democratic side, and I know that Congressman Pittenger heard back from his leadership on the Republican side. To be honest, what I think we're most concerned about is not really the reaction that comes from leadership. What we're really concerned about is solving the problem. Your question was whether or not we can solve this problem, even though we have different ideas of how to get there. And I can tell you, I served for nearly a decade in my state legislature, where I was a member of the minority, and we managed to come together and solve problems on a regular basis. I know we can do it in Congress. We just have to be willing to have these conversations, form the relationships, and eventually we're all going to have to come together and compromise and find some common ground. This letter represents our commitment to doing just that. It's up to all of us in Congress to actually follow through and make it a reality.
Well, Congressman Sinema, I think the country is pulling for you. We really appreciate your helping us to see this effort that you're making, you and 32 other freshman members of Congress. Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat from Arizona, and Representative Rob Pittenger, a Republican from North Carolina. Thanks to both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyrsten.
School principal said no white children allowed at an after-school tutoring program. That did not sit really well with one outraged parent. What did she do next? We're going to find out when she joins us when we come back.